Jefferson Society. And it's my pleasure to kick off tonight's event, and I'm here to do two things. Go over some housekeeping notes and tell you about some upcoming Jefferson events. First, if you need any assistance during the event, please feel free to find me. I'll be in the back. And some reminders for the Q&A portion. After the presentation, please raise your hand if you called on and try to project your voice as best as possible so our speaker can hear you. Actually, we might even have microphones tonight, so you can save your voices by doing that. And please keep your questions brief and concise and refrain from long-winded statements. Now on to some upcoming events. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., Dr. Matthew Platts will deliver a lecture at the Corey Higher Education Council called Child Care is Workforce Development, making the case for affordable and accessible child care in rural Pennsylvania. And on Thursday at 7 p.m., Sarah McCall will be speaking about exploring the role of public libraries in addressing the homelessness crisis at the Erie Center for Arts and Technology. And finally, next Monday at 6 p.m., Dr. Lori Dollahorn will be presenting a talk at the Lincoln Community Center Library called The Importance of Good Real Life. Finally, here is Patrick Cuneo, Director of Publications at the Jefferson to speak science speakers.
Well, thanks, Luke. This is a real honor to come out and visit all you kind folks in Fairview. I'm an East Side Erie kid who for the last 40 years I've lived on the far east side in Fickle Lake, New York. So I may be even more east as the years go on. It's a special treat because not only do we have Judy Lynch, I'll give you a little note on her incredible biography in a moment, and Sabina Freeman, the first name in the history of Fairview, Texas.
Wait a minute, am I that old?
Well, maybe not that bad.
I'm sure it's that great.
Judy's started her career as an analyst for the CIA, and she has held secrets all these years. She, as many of you know, she was the county executive for 20 years, broke every glass ceiling with the earliest. She helped design the home rule charter that set up Erie County's government, served as a councilwoman. Only the second, actually, the first councilwoman, but there was a commissioner, woman commissioner years and years earlier. But Judy has had a phenomenal career, even as her political life kind of slowed down a little bit. She went on to get a PhD in history from the University of Pittsburgh. She is a brilliant, brilliant person. And through all of that, she and her late husband Terry raised 4 daughters, one of whom, Anne, is with us tonight. I'm trying to keep an eye on Judy. If Judy jumps out of her seat, send her back to her seat. Judy, it was my pleasure to edit the book that we're talking about tonight. Judy, for years and years, worked on this book, and she can tell you why she decided to write the book and where places it's taken her. And one of those is Fairview. Sabina, who is, I'm sorry to say, is an Ohio State grad. Beat the tar out of my alma mater in the bowl game. She's a great writer and has been a writer. Has been so involved in Erie Yesterday, the big group of history makers and observers, and also the Fairview Historical Society. So she's here not just to correct us. She's here to give us added insight into what the goings on were in Fairview. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually flip through some of the PowerPoint that Judy put together. One of the things we've been doing on this book tour is going to various parts of the region and trying to model the program to the region, the spot that we're talking to. And that's you guys here. So with all that said, here's Judy Lynch.
Okay. It would be important for me to stand up. Let me just tell you, because I was a teacher at the Bill Academy, and some of you know that directly. I apologize for my teaching experience. Maybe it wasn't. Okay. All right. Okay. So I was a teacher at Bill Academy, and I was a teacher at Mercyhurst University, and I really enjoyed that particular part of my life. But I also served in a political role. At first, as a member of the Homework Study Commission, that was for Erie County. Second, I served on county council, and third, I served this county executive for 20 years. So that was my political career. And so with all of that, what I was able to do was to keep a lot of notes. And my daughter will tell you that I have kind of an enclave, which is my den, and it's full of just notes, and they just papers, and they are unorganized and that sort of thing. But you know, they tell a story, and that's the story I wanted to tell. Now, I think the story is very, very important, but there's some things I want to let you know first. First of all, this is, let me just hold up this book. We can hold it.
Judy, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to sit down.
No, that's okay. I'm fine.
Well, I'll bring the chair to you.
I made a presentation some
Here you
months
go.
ago, many months ago.
It's right
And,
behind. It's
at
right
the,
behind.
in the middle of it, I kind of fainted, but I don't feel faint, and I don't think that that's going to happen tonight. There are some important things that I want
It's
to.
right behind. I want you to try. There you go.
It doesn't want me to trip and yet it puts it right there. Okay, well, at any rate, this is the book, and one of the things that I want to note, it is not a political history. We are going to be talking about Fairview, and Fairview is a tremendous community. We should take pride in the fact that it is part of our total organization of Erie County. We should, if you live in Fairview, we should celebrate its history, celebrate its prominence and what it does, in fact, for the entire area. It really does a tremendous job in talking about the quality of life here in this area. Now, what I want to do is, I'm just mentioning things that are important to me. This is a story about the Erie County Library System. And of course, as serving on county council and as county executive, one of the departments, of course, is the county library, and there wasn't anything that was more important and more enthralling than being a part of that whole process. But when I was, coming up through the ranks, I was on county council. What was happening was that the city school district, you'll remember this, city school district of Erie, and I see by most of your ages that you will probably call this to mind, was having a great deal of financial difficulty in the late, in the 1970s, late 1970s. And as a result, I was on county council at the time. As a result, one of the things that political leaders do is they look at all of the aspects of everything they are providing to the community and say to themselves, what can we get rid of? How can we reduce it? How can we meet our financial obligations? And so the city came to the county about 1978 and asked the county if it would accept the Erie the Erie City Library. The Erie City Library, and at that time it had a couple of associated libraries which were part of their system. And if the city school district said, we can no longer furnish these services, would you take them? And so Erie County made the decision. Russell Robinson was county executive at that time, and Bill Garvey was the director of administration. And this became just a vital area, very important to them. They accepted the opportunity to have the whole library system of the city of Erie come into the county. And then county council concurred with their decision. And as you know, that's been with Bretton Davis, etc. You know, the concurrence is important to get. So the county council said yes, and then it became a part of the Erie County library system. And I would like to also tell you that that time, Fairview Library, this building did not exist. Now the reason why it exists, and I always, every time I come into this library, think we should have something to tell this story. Jim Spiegel, do you remember Jim Spiegel? Yes, do you remember Jim Spiegel? Okay, he was very active in library services, believed that they were highly important to the community, to his profession of real estate. And so he was the one that said, we need a library in Fairview. We need a library in Fairview. And at that time, there was at the West Mill Creek Plaza, we had an outlet, but what was happening at that plaza was that the rents were going up and the need for extra space was very evident. And so the Mill Creek Library then moved to the mall, and this library was built from funds that Jim Spiegel and others in the community who became part of the Erie County Library Foundation raised in order to augment what we had in library services. I hate to do this, but this is what I think. If we could give them a round of applause and in gratitude. There's a detective story here too. When you have an opportunity to read this, what happened to all of the artifacts that were at the school district library on Perry Square? Do you remember going in there? Do you remember all those artifacts? What happened to the Minerva? Okay? What happened to the art objects? Okay? And of course, many of them vanished. Okay? But they have
I think
reappeared.
they're in somebody's basement.
Yes.
I think they're in somebody's basement. Judy,
Oh, yes.
let me interrupt you just for a second. So what we're going to do first with the big picture of the book is if you wouldn't mind explaining to everybody, well, what is it that's so unique about this region as it relates to the 4 counties that this book addresses? Because one of the great things about this book is that it's not just about Erie County or this little part of Erie County. It's about how everything develops. And in a big sense, Washington's visit kicked that off. And Judy's. So we're introducing a lot of ramifications here. So I'm going to finish with one, go to the second, and then go to the third, if that's okay. Sure.
So I'm finishing with the establishment of the Erie County Library and the artifacts disappearing. And also to indicate to you, if you go in the door of the library, which is now on the bayfront, and just go back a little bit, you will see the Minerva. And the Minerva has been returned after she wandered throughout the South, was highly damaged but restored. And she sits there, and she is an opportunity for you if you would like, or if there's somebody you would like to honor, you can get their name on a plaque and have the plaque inserted at the base of the Minerva statue. So that's finishing with that topic, okay? The second topic is the book, okay? Judy, you wrote this book, okay? Well, there's a reason for it being upside down, okay? And this is it. This is not my book, well, it is my book. But all of this inside is my book. This name is not, okay? So I get a note from Pat Cuneo that says, you don't mind if you change the name of the book, do you? What? Okay, all right, go ahead, change the name of the book. Now, I called the book Our Corner of the World. Our Corner of the World. And the book is about 4 counties. And if you kind of bring to your imagination the map of Pennsylvania, you know that Pennsylvania has this corner. And these are the 4 counties. This is Erie, Warren, Crawford, and Venango. Our corner of the world are these 4 counties. And these counties are of great importance because they interlock, they have had ramifications and different ways of influencing each other. And it's important to kind of grab hold of the entire picture, and this is the picture. Now, it is not a political history, okay? Yes, I love Fairview. There is no greater community. You know, I live in Mill Creek, okay, all right. But, you know, Fairview is just beautiful, and the people that live here are happy, excited, pleased to be a part of this community, all right? Okay, but all of the communities in Erie County have been influenced over the time period that this book covers. This book covers from 1800, okay, or a little bit before 1800, when the pioneers were coming into the area, to the current period, It is an economic history. It is an economic history. And what it does, it goes through the pioneer time, it goes through the steam age, it goes, you're following me? Mm-hmm. The motor age, the steam age to the motor age, and from the motor age to the information age, okay? That's the time period of this book. And it talks about the changes that came as a result, largely of the change in technology. And we certainly know that we are confronting it today, what they're going to call the information age, maybe in a few more years, is the age of A1. AI, I call it A1. I figure there's going to be an A2 or 3. Okay, at any rate, this is what I want to make sure that you understand, that this is an economic history. It does not intend to take municipalities from Erie County or any other place in this 4-county area and explore their history, the dynamics of the community. But what Pat Cuneo wanted me to do was to go here, I'm going to this community, this community, this community. Come on, Judy, we got to sell this book, sell this book. Now, I get nothing from this book, okay? We got to sell this book. This is what we're selling. And so one of the communities, of course, is Fairview, and we are here to sell the book. Now, I'm not suggesting that you buy the book. I'm just saying to you, that's one of the reasons that we are here. But we should also celebrate the tremendous history of this area. Now, there's
Can I say one
that's
thing?
the second one. I'm finished with the second one.
Can I say something about this, the price of the book? Actually, this is a labor of love. This book is at cost. That's why we kept it as inexpensive as it is. Because the idea is not to sell the book. The idea is that people have the book so that they can actually
It's
know
really
this
an
history.
encyclopedia. So
What-
if you've got some things that you're interested in or come to your mind and you want to get a little bit more information, there might be information in that book about what you're seeking. Okay, now, Pat has asked me to explain to you why I wrote the book. But before I say that, I want to say one of the other things that came to me that just burst out, that was so evident. My daughter here can tell you, this is all I talk about. This is the story of George Washington going up French Creek from Virginia, where he left, carrying a letter to the French that were in Fort LaBeouf to tell them to get out, right? That it was British property. Now, when George Washington came back from his visit, to LaBeouf, which we call Waterford, when he came back to Virginia, this tells you something about his understanding of how things work and how to get connections. He sat down and wrote this. It's called The Journal. And this is a story about his trip up French Creek, and all of the endeavors that he had to go through because it was in December of 1753, I believe. And you can imagine how cold, went through the ice. It was a very difficult trip, but he made it. He delivered Governor Dinwiddie's letter, and he returned to Virginia and wrote this book, okay? And in this book, what it says, if you ever get a copy of it, it's hard to get, okay? But if you get a copy of it, what he says in this book, there's some beautiful valleys. There's some beautiful fields. If you go through this area, it's really, even in December, it is very fetchy. It's very attractive. It's someplace where if you were a pioneer, you might like to go, okay? Now, not only the journal, but other writings of George Washington on his trip were published at that time in every English-speaking newspaper in the whole world. Now think of that. This is the British Empire we're talking about. It's Canada, it's the United States, it's also India, it's many other places throughout the world. The English-speaking, the English language newspapers of the world carried all sorts of information about Washington's trip to Fort LaBeouf and about how he experienced it and the attractiveness of the site. So what I came to believe after my investigations was that it started here. The United States started here. It started here because of that trip of Washington. And then it was published in every English-speaking newspaper, okay? And then the world knew what was here. And Washington became a British officer. He was in the French and Indian War, and then, of course, the Revolutionary War and our first president, okay? So we played a mighty, mighty, mighty role in the beginning of the United States. And I don't know how you feel about that, but for me, it makes me feel very proud to be from Northwestern Pennsylvania. Okay, so that's the 3 points now.
Great.
I guess I will give it back to Pat.
If you promise to sit down, please.
Don't you want to see me faint?
No.
Well, thanks, Judy. Sabina, tell us about, Fairview is older, much older than even George Washington. Tell us about those early days of where we're Lancaster County or wherever Fairview was.
This was a forest, and Indians were still here. By 1796 or 7, there were only 12 people living in the whole area that became Fairview Township. And I say people, I really mean men and maybe women, but you'd never know there were any women. There were 12 men. The way we know there were women was because a baby was born. The first business here, if we get back to the subject, is a sawmill. It was built in 1797. Two men who were part of a land company, they had each invested $1,000 to buy land up here and then resell it. And they bought 430 acres around the mouth of Walnut Creek. They came in 1796 to have a look at it, and then came back the next spring, bringing everything they needed but the wood, because Walnut Creek was heavily laden with walnut trees. And so they spent the spring and summer. Their names were Colonel Thomas Forster and Captain Richard Swan. They were from the Dauphin County area around Harrisburg. Those were the last ranks they had during the Revolutionary War, so they continued to carry them through the rest of their lives. Actually, Mr. Swan was a farmer, and he came up here because he was an investor. And Colonel Forster, at the moment, was an associate judge. And when he went back, he was elected to the state representatives and gave up his associate judge. But he came back the next year alone and built the second, well, now wait a minute. The sawmill was the second in the county, and that year, 1798, he built the first grist mill. And if you can imagine, all the farmers from as far away as they could get came with their corn and their wheat to have it ground. And that was the first business in Fairview Township.
And it's also the first serious road after the French Fort Road, because it never occurred to me till the old histories point out that when a grist mill or sawmill were built, especially a big grist mill like Forster's, all the roads led to the grist mill. And that was the development of the area. So the economics play, throughout. Also, tell us about the storied naming of Fairview.
Well, when they came to look at what they had purchased, they climbed up on a cliff. I think Manchester Heights is probably where they were, if anybody knows that area. And they looked out over the lake, which must have been beautiful, the valley below where Walnut Creek was cutting through, and the forest beyond. The colonel is credited with saying this. When he looked out over all of this wonderful nature, he said, "This is the fairest view I have seen yet." And they liked the sound of that. And so he was a trained surveyor. He had attended Princeton. And so he was going to lay out a town down below on the east side of Walnut Creek. And the mills would be on the east side as well. So they decided that when the town was laid out, it would be called Fairview. It remained as Fairview until 1829, when a couple of brothers came to buy the mills. I would say that the most successful they were, these two mills, was when Captain Richard Swan came back in 1802 and took over the management of these two mills. He kept a day book, and I'm hoping It's somebody I know who bought some junk that was swan junk. When he looks at it, we'll see that he's got a day book. I'm hoping that.
And you get it back.
And we get it. Yes, indeed.
Well, that's pretty interesting. One of the things I like about the book is that Judy has basically resurrected the old histories, and they're used to point out the context of all these changes. And those are the kind of old books I have many. I bet you have a lot. You need to wear a mask or you can't breathe for a half hour after you read them. But many of them would be lost to history. So tell us, Judy, how did you select? There's a list of many that you did use.
I'd like to go to the second slide.
The second one? Now, is this after Fairview, you mean?
No, the second slide.
Right here.
Okay, now, for you library goers, okay, and of course you're all here. And I have a feeling you frequent libraries quite a bit. And whether you go upstairs in the main Blasco library and you're asking questions of the librarian and you're getting information, you're probably using these books. If there's any history that you're seeking about Northwestern Pennsylvania, it is these books that you are using. These are the books that have been produced on Erie County's history and adjacent counties, Crawford and Warren, okay? So what I want to point out to you is the date that they were published, 45. The last one, the last date. And what is today's date? 2025. And so if you are a person and you're saying, okay, where are the recent ones? Where are the historians of our community? Why haven't we had a comprehensive history of Erie County and its adjacent counties? And we haven't. And so that's one of the reasons why I thought it was important to put all of this together. Then I think the next question, and I'm not sure that this will be the next question, but why 4 counties? Why not just Erie County? I mean, as residents of Erie County, we'll say, hey, you know, everything that's important is here, right? No. Okay? No. The 4 counties are so important because their economies were interlocked, okay, in so many different ways. And remember, this is an economic history. Can I ask you a question? What is the biggest tsunami that hit Erie County or this area? The biggest change that brought change, economic change, to these 4.
Cuneo?
No, someone already said it. Oil. And that's what it was, okay? And there was a tremendous impact on these 4 counties. Not for some of them, like Crawford with Titusville, or even Warren County had oil. But Erie County apparently didn't have the oil, but it had some other things that it was able to deliver. Parts of Erie County made barrels. And what do you need to put oil in? Barrels, okay? And what is the barrel capital of Northwestern Pennsylvania? Is Union City. Union City, okay? So, all sorts of products were needed in order to take the oil that was being found in the ground, bring it to the surface. What was the boiler capital of the world? Erie. Okay? What type of energy did they use? What do you think? What energy did they use? They used steam in order to make the machinery to pump the pumps and all of the apparatus that you needed in order to get the oil out of the ground, to get it delivered perhaps to a railroad, okay? You know, so oil was tremendous because it brought about the emergence of a lot of enterprises that produced machinery, okay? Now, what became the tool and die capital of the world? Tool and die capital of the world, Crawford County, okay? Where did it get its start? Titusville. Where was it? It was in the oil industry, okay? It was a tsunami, okay? Now, I'm going to ask you something else. Where was it situated? The largest number of refineries. So many refineries that you couldn't even count them. Block after block after block after block of refineries. Where were they? Where were they? You're going to have to go back to the library to get your books. Okay, no. You know where they were? Erie. Well, if they were in Erie, that doesn't make sense, does it? You would think that we still have refineries, but we don't. Warren County has a refinery, okay? What happened to Erie's refineries? I'm trying to convince people to do a play. And see, look at Ida Tarbell, Ida Tarbell. Oh, yes, Ida Tarbell. Let's go, Ida. Oh, you know what Ida did? She brought him down. She brought John D. Rockefeller down, 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 down. Whoa, there you go, right? Ida Tarbell, where was she born? Erie. Oh, yes, you know, Cache Hollow. And her family then moved to the Titusville area. Her father was engaged in the production of oil, right? Okay, but unfortunately, let me just say unfortunately, you may not feel that way, and I understand that, but there was this very intelligent, presumptive person who had all of the skills in order to bring it here. Bring it here, bring it here, bring it here. Who it was? John D. Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, right? He got the railroads to take the oil. He controlled the railroads. He controlled the oil. And where did he take the oil? To the refineries in Erie? No. No. He took it to the refineries in Cleveland. Okay? And of course, what did Ida Tarbell do then? Ida Tarbell, what did you do? Oh, my goodness sakes. What would a teacher say? What would a teacher say if her student was Ida Tarbell? Hooray, she would say. Hooray, she brought her down. She brought John D. Rockefeller down. She wrote the book, Standard Oil, and she revealed all of and much of it was illegal, all of the shady practices of John D. Rockefeller, all of what enabled him to grab a hold of the oil region and transport it to Cleveland to his refinery, So, you know, where did Ida Tarbell go to school? Where did she go to school? Allegheny. She graduated from Allegheny, okay? She went to other schools too, but she graduated from Allegheny, okay? And she worked for McClure's magazine, and she wrote all this story about Standard Oil in 5 or 6 or 7 different monthly presentations of McClure's, okay? And she was a hero. She was a hero. And what happened? The federal government came in and said, no, 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 we cannot have oligarchs. No oligarchs, no oligarchs, no oligarchs. Federal Trade Commission, okay? This is how we begin to control oligarchy. Well, we're not doing so well today, are we? Okay? But this was a story, began in Erie. She was born in Erie, lived in Crawford County, grew up, and she worked all different various places. But the greatest contribution she made, in my opinion, okay, was her book on Standard Oil. And what was she able to do? Bring them down, Chuck. Do you want to bring them down? Okay? And so all of you who have said the big tsunami, the change that brought those 4 counties together, that big tsunami was the oil. The discovery of oil, 1859 discovery of oil, okay? When Edwin Drake drilled oil. It started here, guys, it started here. Go to Titusville, go on the railroad, visit these heritage sites that are so fantastic. Now, remember we started out with Erie? And we said, what did Erie have? It had refineries. Parts of Erie County were making barrels, but Erie County had refineries. Have you ever wondered when you look at the map? Here's Buffalo. Here's Cleveland. These are Detroit. But they missed it.
Yeah, that's right.
Erie. So this is, and you know this story better than I probably. So what happened was that people came to the people that owned the refineries and they said, look, you're losing this business. He's grabbing everything. He's taking control of it. You're losing your business. You're going to go under. We've got a solution. We know how to do this. And they said, what you can do is build a pipeline. And you start at the beginning when the oil comes out from the ground. You get it as it comes out into the pipeline. You push it with pumps. And you take it all the way to the Erie refineries. And your refineries then become the hub. And it's not Cleveland, it is Erie that becomes the refinery capital of the world. Did it happen? No. Why? Because the refinery owner said, what? Take it in a pipeline? Well, that doesn't, did that sound okay? No, it's weird. No, won't work. Yeah. So, but at any rate, John D. Rockefeller did not succeed. Well, he sort of did, because they broke up Standard Oil, and I think there were, I don't know how many, 20-some monopolies, or no, 20-some organizations, business enterprises that were created from Standard Oil. So that's my history of the oil. And this is why you look at the 4 counties together. Today we call the tool and die capital of the world, which is what? Meadville. And where did the experience to build tools and to ignite that industry in Meadville, where did it come from? It came from the oil industry. Much of our manufacturing was also employed. We built the derrick. Did you know that? The derrick that was the derrick on the ground that Edwin Drake used in order to get the, to pump the oil out. Where did it come from? Jareckies. Okay? If you go look, and you can see the contributions of Erie County were tremendous, and it went all over. But we never agreed to have the oil pumped through pipelines. Wouldn't happen.
Say, Judy, so there are a lot of industries that developed. Even with Erie, we have documented the number of times Erie could have advanced had it seized opportunities. But they still did advance in various ways. That whole boiler business that Erie was one of the leading boilers in the world. It was a rise of the labor movement. This was a focal point because of workers and the treatment of workers, et cetera, et cetera. But if I could flash forward, the hotbed of plastics industry really was this region.
Yes, it
And
was.
so tell us about that. And Sabina, I think you could chip in with this too, of how this became a development area for plastics and various changes. Yeah, Erie resistance. Yeah.
I want to say, what was that movie Dustin Hoffman was in with plastics?
Yeah,
The Graduate.
The Graduate, right. We have in Fairview so many small businesses, nothing huge, but they're all inventive, and some of them serve the world. I think Spectrum sells
Yes.
parts everywhere.
can we go to the slide that shows? And I think even though you may live in Fairview or close to the Fairview area, perhaps you've never seen a list of the Fairview community enterprises.
True.
Okay, that's not quite it.
There you go.
Okay. Haynes is one. Let's go to the next slide. This is Tool and Die Industries in the Fairview area. These are on West Ridge Road, and look at the number here. Think of 12th Street. Go back in your memories. Okay? The new 12th Street.
That's right. There they are. There's that small industrial park on either side of Route 98,
Yes.
close to 90.
Let's go to that Fairview Industrial Park. We'll come back to Bob Baldwin.
Yeah. I guess I went back.
Here, this page.
Spectrum control, back,
Haynes,
back, back.
Haynes was actually the first one in those.
Okay.
Oh,
There.
here we are.
This is about the business part. And most of you, and this was when, excuse me, so sorry, when I was county executive, okay. You know, I did work, I worked. Okay, and believe me, I'd never finished completely the question, why did you write this book? I was county executive during the 1980s. You know what happened during the 1980s. And it was not just Erie County or these 4 county areas. It was much of the Northeast and the Midwest, okay? Deindustrialization. Industries left. You know where they were going? They were going to lower cost areas, okay? They were getting their supplies and their particles, the things that they needed for their business, they were getting them from China, from other parts of Asia. That became the suppliers. And so the 1980s, if you had to use one term to define the Erie area, it would be deindustrialization. Deindustrialization. And that factor in our economy, people who worked in manufacturing went like, phew, and hit the bottom. And so that was one of the reasons why I was busy collecting papers saying, what can we do, what can we do, what can we do? What has been successful in other places? Is there anything we can do? Okay, so, and the state was there, ready to help, and even the federal government, okay? And we could get some money, some grants. And the Fairview Industrial Park was one of the places that was established at that time. Now, you see the LERTA ordinance. What can we do to enhance manufacturing? Well, we could lower their taxes. We could give them a special kind of tax exemption. We could allow them to do a little bit more than what other business owners might be allowed to do. So all of these things kind of fit in to a plan to increase manufacturing, to build up manufacturing, to support what was left, to help it to grow back again, to get back, to get beyond the 1980s. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, one of the nice things about the Fairview Business Park too is that it reused what was, that great Commodore Downs facility that horse racing and then harness racing never quite made it, although there were stops and starts. But that the water and sewer angle of that, taking it to the business park, Judy is filled with humility on this, but she started with several people, but was the impetus in starting these industrial parks. One of them you just went by,
Yes,
the
if we
Baldwin
could,
one.
let's just look at the Bob Baldwin.
Yeah.
Because just as we salute James Bigle, and James Bigle was somebody that built the library system, he was very integral to a lot of other activities trying to build Erie up. But Bob Baldwin was tremendous. He was a friend of Lou Tullio's. He worked with the Economic Development Corporation. He worked with a multiple group of economic leaders. The head of Penelec here was one of them. And we would have at least monthly meetings. But one of the things I learned from Bob Baldwin, I learned many things, but one of the things I learned was the saying that he was so likely to emit. Location, location, location. It's all about location, all right? Now, the Erie Fieldhouse, do you remember? No, Erie Fieldhouse, where was it? It was on I-90. I hate to tell you this. Okay. We closed the field house. We turned over those responsibilities to the city of Erie, right? Okay, and we took the water and sent it up Peachtree. Well, you could clap, but you could say, oh my God. Okay? Because look what happened. Look what happened to the center cities. But we were not alone. Almost every community had their center city just decimated, totally decimated, as they grappled with the problems of deindustrialization and suburbanization and the people moving from the cities. And so Bob Baldwin was absolutely wonderful. And that he built a lot of the buildings and the architecture that are on the Upper Peach that Mr. Scott owns today. Okay, originally Bob Baldwin's, they were part of his empire. And so I really think that this is a motto that we should not forget. Okay, think of Fairview. Think of Fairview, located close to the lake. Very high proportion of educated citizens here, right? Their school, the achievement index, it's one of the highest in Erie County, okay? Look at the transportation. I-90 is right there. Intersection of I-79. Location, location, location. Look what has built up as a result of the favorable location of Fairview, a beautiful, wonderful city in which not a city now, but a city in which to live.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. And the arguments that carry out by community are also present today, as evidenced by the community's stand against a big company across from the Pleasant Ridge facility that just played out. But there's two sides, or maybe far more than two sides to many issues. One of them is the efforts to use the Erie waterfront for pure industry or railroads actually prevailed for decades. At the time that was it Nelson was hired to do a study for Erie, there were no waterfront properties owned by the public at that time. And it took actually his insights to claim water lots beyond the shore that actually forced some of the movement from the railroads and the steel makers and others who had, and the port facilities that had dominated that waterfront. So people didn't have any access. And similarly, there was an effort to first turn the peninsula into a naval base, and that failed in the early 1800s, mercifully. Later, Ford was going to build and was basically offered the peninsula, but the community couldn't gather. Well, that would have been a travesty, of course. But there are so many great success stories as well. So Sabina, when you try to bridge the history with the present, what's your view of Fairview and its movement, and where does it go from here?
I understand Fairview is a growing community.
Yes, it is.
Just don't look at the main street when you drive through.
Now, if I could just add something, if we had a population grid, okay, of all of the communities in Erie County, Fairview is one of the very few that is growing. Almost everything is declining, and this is because I get a little excited and a little upset. It's declining precipitously. I have these, fears.
Well, I think the schools certainly are a drawing card. We have wonderful subdivisions, and those folks have no interest in the history. They're interested in where their children are going to school and that sort of thing. Much of the land was in farm. Everything south of 20 was pretty much rural for years and years, but now that too is being developed. So what's happening to Fairview is it's changing. The original history of it is being lost. And we're trying hard, but it's being lost. And yet we still have some interest. But it's really a bedroom community is really what Fairview is. And with the schools there, that's one of the reasons that we're still growing. So.
Well, you're still really active with is the Swan Building, what's the center of the Historical Society?
The Historical Society is in business. We started in right after the bicentennial, and we own a house that's on the National Register. Two Sturgeon brothers came about the same time that the colonel and the captain came and established farms. They had so many sons named Sturgeon, of course, that after a while the little community there became Sturgeonville. But when we became in 1829, when the Fairview settlement at Walnut Creek became Manchester, and this was because of two new mill owners who wanted to make it seem more like the industrial town in England, then we were already Fairview Township, but by this point in time, common use was calling the main center of civilization Fairview. That would be along the Ridge Road at Route 20, where it hits Trout Run. That's where the two Sturgeon brothers first settled. So the Historical Society is struggling to remain alive, I would say that, and keep our history. We write a lot of history. We have Coming to Fairview. The Swans, when they came to Fairview, it's basically based on one of the Swan's son, the oldest son, as he came as a boy with his father to the mills. So we do have a lot of histories, short histories, nothing big and comprehensive.
Well, as we wrap up this part of the program and turn it over to your questions, Judy, tell us currently Crawford, Warren, Venango, Erie, what do they have in common now?
They're struggling. There isn't a single one of those counties that isn't struggling. And I would assume people are always better, if they're optimistic, and so they may express their optimism, but it's difficult. It is a struggle, it is a strain, and the question is, what's going to happen? And as you probably know, there are a segment of our people in these 4 counties are immigrants, and they are petrified, scared to death that they will be put on some sort of a train or some sort of taken to some sort of well, you know about the prison, the Erie County Prison being used for immigrants. And so immigrants are a way in which our society, our communities have always grown, because we looked inviting. We had an aspect that was alluring. And we are in an immigrant center. We are designated by the federal government as an immigrant reception center. But getting the immigrants and getting them acclimated and making sure that they stay here, their children stay here, and all of our children stay here. Well, you know.
Your book begins and ends with George Washington, and there's real reason for optimism in your finish. Tell us about that. How do you finish it?
Well, this is my belief, okay? George Washington is not here, okay? I have never met him, although I think I have. But I revere him, okay? Well, that's okay. That's just my decision. Doesn't have to be your decision. But if you look at his life, and if you look at the aspects of his life, how he came up as a young person, it was a struggle. He was born in an affluent family, but not really affluent, okay? He struggled all his life. It was against adversity. Even as president, he was the first president. He had to find the way. He had to make the road. He had to know what he was doing. George Washington, to me, is the person that Americans can emulate. It is his tenacity, his unwillingness to give up. We'll not give up. We will go on, right? There are all sorts of stories that you can read about George Washington, that he fell in this river, but he was not going to give up, that he went through the killing fields, in a sense, okay, in the French and Indian War, but said, we are not giving up. He went through the Revolution. He didn't win a single battle in the Revolutionary War until the Battle of Yorktown, which was the end. And yet he did not give up, okay? Well, I don't want to draw this picture for our lives, because I want your lives to be much better than that. But I think adversity is a part of our lives, okay? Economic adversity. We don't give up. We have a beautiful area here in Fairview. We have a wonderful county. We live in the beginning. This is the beginning of the United States, this area. And we need to honor it, to preserve it, and we need to have the grit to make sure it continues.
All right. Okay, well, certainly there must be some questions in the audience that Sabina or Judy could answer for you. Who's the first?
I'll start, because I want to go back to George Washington. I remember what we talked about those many years ago, was the Cincinnati politician. Someone who was in politics, not for his own gain, but for service, and then there was a rotation.
Amen.
So
Yeah, Patty was one of my students. She was at the Bill. I'll tell you, she was the brightest student I ever had. Oh, yes, yes. And I'm so fortunate to have you as a student. And you're right, you don't give up. Yeah, and you persevere. And besides, it's just like a little bug. A bug finds a hole, it finds a groove, it gets through, So, maybe a bad thing might happen to the bug when you step on it, but, it makes its way. And I think that that's what we all do. We persevere, we make our way, we don't give up, and we don't, say, there's nothing left. But there's always, yeah, there is this community and all of the other parts of the United States and of the world. We cannot give up.
I would like to interject a thought. The Colonel Thomas Forster, actually settled in Erie. He and his wife had 11 children. She died when he was in his mid-40s. And through the rest of his life, through all of his life, he worked at almost every cultural thing, helped to start the library, was on the board for the Waterford Turnpike, the school districts, the church. He just contributed to everything. He was the first collector of customs and remained so until he died. And the newspapers all were just full of good words about him, how we would always remember him, and nobody knows him now. His daughter and a couple of nieces were involved in making the flag, Don't Give Up the Ship. So that's how he finds notoriety today. But he should have some sort of a statue or statement about him that's in the public, because he was involved in every aspect of developing the city of Erie. So.
Could we have another questioner over here? Yeah.
There's a question.
Oh,
Last month here, we had a lecture on fish wars in Lake Erie. And one of his big themes was that there was a big shipbuilding industry in the city of Erie. Did you recognize that as part of our history, or not as important as oil?
It was a very significant part of our history, and Fairview participated. The McBriars were big in fishing and in making the boats and things like that. But the question is where are the fish? And I think what we see is that there are many people who are very concerned about the population of fish and about the quality of the lake. Now, that's another hobby of mine, so you don't want to get into that. I wrote a little synopsis on harmful algae blooms, but this is something that we can all participate in. It is a resource, and who has this resource? 20% of the world's water, fresh water, is here. And this fresh water is probably desired by much of the country, in addition to many of the other areas outside of our country. What did Saudi Arabia do? Come and pump water out of, it was Texas, I believe, and take it back to Saudi Arabia. What's happening in Sagertown? I'd like to know, because they have a water plant. Where is the water going? Cambridge Springs, the fresh water, the springs, okay? we need to guard that particular aspect of our heritage and of our community.
That's a good question about the shipbuilding. Don John actually is doing a decent business right now, but you're right, after the commercial fishing industry went down and sports fishing became the thing, you can probably lump that into the tourism parts, but the manufacturing is all but dried up, except for Don John, which is, I guess, is that progress?
It isn't progress, it isn't, but we take what we can get, and we make do, but we make it better or greater, okay? And so tourism. Since the 1990s, this community, even though you may not be totally in agreement with it, if you look at economic development, has concentrated on tourism. So it is very significant. And we've got everything to bring people here. And we can create more.
Bringing people here, one of the places in the airport you don't really have.
That's true. Absolutely true. I'd like to know.
What's happened, they're thinking about putting it on Pleasant Ridge there. That got, about 40, 50 years, that got, it's freezing.
I don't know, but I think the quality of availability of air transportation is a really big point. And I'm sure that our development agencies, and we have a lot of them, okay? We have people who are just every day, every minute that they have, they are trying to push the community forward. But why they can't do anything about the airport, I don't know.
I could actually mention a couple of things. Believe it or not, there's some optimism on the horizon here. Communities that have succeeded basically subsidize air service. Our issue is no longer like the length of the runways, et cetera. You don't have to bribe them. You have to make the deals. And so that was the effort that the chamber did, trying to raise money, but in isolation. And all the chamber leadership, if you've noticed, is gone because that was considered something that failed. And so right now, Erie Insurance is probably leading the way. They're the Fortune 500 company. They need air service. And so this is going to be struck by business first probably. But we're actually, we've tried as an organization, the Jefferson, tried to make connections. That's what we do. We try to get people talking. And we had a fella who it is his business. He's an expert based in Canada. And at the last minute, the chamber didn't hatch that deal. So we think maybe there's some hope in that. Erie Insurance is still dealing with them. But business, that's driven, and as consumers, frustrating. You know, if the only place you can get a direct flight to is Orlando or whatever it is right now, that's to take your kids to Disney World.
Forgive me, but I spent my entire 42 years in Erie industry. I mean industry, manufacturing goods and products and so on. And the heroes of the world were Otto Baron, who created cameraman, and H.O. Hurd, Samuel Black, the Erie insurance, and then but they go on and on, the Thurn family. Everybody had industrial bases, and it's just completely been eliminated and replaced by overseas product. Is there any change likely to any of that? It's all moved to the Far East. Forgive me, I've been in China 4 times. I've been on there. It's unfortunate, though. Perhaps
Well, the industries that are at the height, that are the highest in terms of employment, are healthcare, okay, and education, like, advanced Gannon, but these are the ones that are at the height of the economic scale. We need others to join there.
Yeah, there's no entry-level jobs anymore, which used to be provided by local industry. It was, these people migrated to higher positions, they got educated, succeed.
But
You got it.
we need to bring our young people back.
Yes.
You're so right. Hammermill is a great example. When they, before International Paper, when it was still Hammermill, their hands were in almost all the nonprofits around here, driving community organizations. And so that was a tremendous loss. GE also, I mean, we're still seeing what WabTech can do. They're all treated in the book pretty well. The rise and fall, but the community takes the brunt in the end, whether it's through housing or through many things. But the leadership in those organizations was a tremendous loss. I guess the bottom line with that question, though, Judy, does this not come back? Do you move on and say, okay, healthcare, service, tourism, and just say that's never going to come back? You'll be beating your head against the wall.
If you're saying that will never come back, you're referring to the production of paper?
Industry, manufactured goods, listen, all kinds of.
All right, one of the things that I take heart in that makes me feel a little bit better is when I look at Barron, okay? And Barron has laboratories now that are very high-tech laboratories that are trying to create products that can be made and that can be sold, or that would be alluring, in the industry. So that's true of Barron. And I know this is a library, so I don't want to get into a difficulty, but I will. Okay, and you have Gannon, okay, and Gannon is doing other things. One of them was that they wanted to have an aquatic biology lab. And of course, the library rose up and screamed and hollered. Brenton Davis agreed to it, but where it's going to go, I don't know. But that aquatic lab, it would be very important for the Erie community. Really, one of the greatest treasures, if not the greatest treasure that we have, is that lake. And 80% of it is dead. Okay, there is no life in it. We need these biology labs in order to get to the root of this problem. And if we could have a sports fishing industry, well, you don't need to eat it for Fridays, okay? But sports fishing, you would like to go and fish, and they're going to jump at it, and it's fun, and bring the fishermen in. Well, that's something that we need to do. We're doing it right now, but in a very small way, and it's from a hatchery close to Corey, where we have a ship, a fish hatchery, okay? And now there are entities that buy the fish, and then they transport it over to Walnut Creek, throw it in the creek, and the fishermen come to fish. We need to do other things to expand the fishing industry, the sports fishing industry. Let me just ask you one thing. Okay, do you remember when Erie, this is many years ago, Erie, I think it was one of the authorities, built the dock out there. It was to receive the ships that were going to, okay? Anybody here want to go on the Great Lakes ships? You can go, and you can go to Buffalo, but then you go to Cleveland, and you can go to Detroit, but you miss Erie. Yeah, but we built this dock. We're all ready for it. And we do have accommodations available at that area. We do have things that might be of interest to tourists, but we can't get the ship to come here. And I think we need to give that a whole lot more punch than what we're doing.
Yes.
But don't give up.
This question's not in the future, it's gonna be in the past.
Uh-oh, I didn't do
Looking at
it.
your map here,
I didn't do it.
and it looks like we were part of New York at one time. When did the Erie Triangle when did Fairview become part of Pennsylvania? Is that right? Is that in your book?
No, it isn't. Okay.
But I mean, because then you know.
Forgive me, it was Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin wanted Pennsylvania to have access to the Great
Yes,
Lakes.
that's right.
That's
Okay.
another issue.
Exactly. Okay.
1792, the triangle was purchased.
1792.
Okay.
Yes.
1793, the
Two.
triangle.
1792.
Pardon?
1792.
1792, excuse me.
One of my favorite parts of that whole story, it's a great saga. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, everybody laid claim to it. And it was Connecticut used that as its Western Reserve. So all that Ohio Western Reserve was Connecticut saying that on a straight line they owned everything. And so that when they were forced to drop out, the feds, probably to Franklin's insistence, they designated Pennsylvania so Philadelphia would have a lake port. But that's a great story in Erie history.
What kind of economic impact did the Erie Extension Canal have? And through Fairview?
Do you want?
No, go ahead.
Okay. The Erie Canal, of course, is in New York, okay? It had a tremendous impact because it actually allowed people who landed in New York City to go all the way up to the Buffalo area. It had a tremendous economic impact. That's the Erie Canal. The Erie Extension Canal was something that was built over a longer period of time, okay? It was built later, and there was much argument and dissension and problems. Is it going here? Is it going there? Is it going where we're going to, there was all of that, even through Meadville and areas. And the area, of course, had to go, the Erie Extension Canal had to go up the Appalachian Mountains and down the Appalachian Mountains. And that, again, was a tremendously difficult technology, took time to develop. So when the canal was finished, it was bankrupt. It was a private company. It had already gone bankrupt. And what they did is they sold the shares to the people in Erie who had, at that time, some money that could buy it, okay? By the name of Scott or other people, okay? But there it was, the Erie Extension Canal was finished, and we can all go see parts of it. You can see parts of it. However, at the same time, what was happening was the trains were coming into Erie County, and the train from Buffalo through the lake, and then, of course, from Cleveland through the lake. And of course, you all know the story of Horace Greeley and how mad he was when these trains had different size track, okay? And so they got in a real squabble, and the people had to get off one train, and they were transported either to another train or they stayed overnight. Tourism, right? Okay? But Horace Greeley was one of the persons who was interrupted in his attempt to get to Cleveland or maybe some other place, and he was to give a speech, and he said, and I won't get this correct, but may the people of Erie County always be something or other. It was a very, very mean-spirited speech. It's good to forget those things.
I have just one footnote on it's the Erie Extension Canal is actually the extension of the Pennsylvania Canal, which started from Philadelphia, and then it hits the mountains. So by the time it runs out of gas, and they're arguing about what the Northern Passage should be, they finally agree to that, and Rufus Reed leads a group of Erie business people to buy up the rest. They got it for a song, I forget, pennies on the dollar. And then they finished it, so it actually thrived from 1844 to 77 or something like that. But along the way, as trains took off, Rufus Reed, again, and his friends bought the rights to the canal. So the tracks are built largely on what those canal lines were. And they're the ones who ended up buying it. The railroad people were the same people.
Right.
And so but it was big in Erie because it revolutionized the salt industry and others that they could put so much and so cheaply on barges. And then, that the tow pass. There's still I think a lock in a Fairview field, right?
Fairview has several areas where you can see the tofu. We were losing our power on the streams because there were so many people moving in, cutting down trees, and that sort of thing. So the extension canal came along just about the right time for businesses. It brought cheap coal, and it helped little places like Albion and Cranesville and all along there. Also Girard, and all the way in. I believe that Walnut Creek thought they might be one of the terminus areas, and that didn't happen. So, but it did help to rejuvenate the mills that were along there.
I'm curious, with all this history and heritage, what's your opinion on how you balance conservation against
What did he say?
We're not sure of the question.
With all the history and heritage of this area, how do you balance conservation with industry going forward?
I think that we have learned how to do that through the Industrial Revolution, okay? And of course, products change, technologies change, so there's always more learning to do. But we can manage some effluent or some poison or some problem that is being produced. We can manage it in one way or another. We can reduce it, we can eliminate it, we can, it takes additional technology. But I am not, that is not of a big concern of mine.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Well, thank you so much for coming out, and thank you to Judy Lynch and Sabina Freeman.